Hi, sisters, and welcome to the Body Ally podcast, where we're learning how to stop battling with our bodies and with food from a faith and science-backed approach. We learn instead how to be an ally with our bodies, partnering with our bodies and accepting them as the gift that God intended. We are promoting the Body Ally movement, where we invite all women to no longer struggle with their bodies and to view them in terms of what society tells us, but instead to accept them as the gift that God intended. That our bodies are our holy vessel that house us as we travel throughout time here upon this earth. All right, ladies, are you ready for today? Today, we're going to get into why willpower and motivation aren't the methods that are going to get you where you want to go. They might be part of the equation, but they're not going to be the main thing. Why they aren't the main thing and what to do instead. But first, I want to remind everyone what the context of the Body Ally movement is. At the very beginning of this podcast, I think in podcast number 1, episode 1, I went back and I explained in that podcast what the Body Ally movement is. I want to revisit that. I talk about it at the intro of every episode, just briefly. I take parts and pieces from it, but I want to read it in entirely right now, just as a reminder. So this is the Body Ally podcast, where we're promoting the Body Ally movement. What is this movement? It's a movement inviting all women to accept their bodies and realizing this: I am not my body, but she is my vessel. I commit to no longer battle with her. I accept my body as the gift that God intended. I'm done measuring my worth and my body's worth by numbers, sizes, or worldly standards. I honor and align myself with my body's wisdom. I pursue health as an act of love, not as proof of value. I choose love over punishment, grace over grind. I reclaim the partnership with my divine body. I am her ally. When we diet, so often it places us in a position to be in opposition or in a battle with our body. I'm inviting all women to view their body as the gift that it truly is, that it's not something to fix, not something to battle, but it's something to become an ally, to be an ally with your body. That she's helping you go through every step of your life, that there is no joy or struggle that you've gone through or experience you've had in this life that wasn't made possible and that your body didn't support you in going through. All right, ladies, so I, again, invite you, if you haven't already, to join the Body Ally movement and accept the invitation to choose to no longer battle with your God-given body, but instead to become an ally with her. Now, a side note, some women say, well, what if you have a health diagnosis? What if you feel like your body really is working against you? Here's the thing. Every single cell of your body exists so that you can exist. Every single cell of your body, every system of your body is working together to keep you alive. Let's say you have a diagnosis. Let's say you have cancer or even an autoimmune disease. These are all the effects of our fallen world. These are not, and that your body is working so hard against to keep you alive. Your body didn't give you cancer. Your body didn't give you an autoimmune disease. These were responses of a fallen world. Your body's a gift that functions to travel you throughout time here on this earth until it's time to return back to your maker. Without your body, you wouldn't even be able to worship God in this life. It's through our bodies that we feel the Holy Spirit. It's through our bodies that we experience anything in this life. So when we buy into this idea in society that we can't fully accept or feel settled in life until our body reaches a certain health goal, and usually that looks like weight loss, then we're buying into this idea that somehow our body is not fulfilling the measure of her creation in every single moment, regardless of what's going on right now. Okay, let's go ahead and delve in. So here's the thing with willpower and motivation, and we're going to break this down to brain stuff. Willpower and motivation are wonderful. Use them when they're there. They're not bad. They're not wrong. They are, however, they are part of a higher functioning part of your brain. So there's your upper brain and your lower brain. Your upper brain is your conscious thinking self. It's the part that you're using right now as you listen and conceptualize and begin to understand what I'm saying. It's the part I'm using as I articulate to give you this information. Willpower and motivation, high functioning upper parts of your brain. Okay. Type, that's where willpower and motivation are only operating when you're operating through the higher parts of your brain. Your lower brain, which is the subconscious brain, it's also where all of your thoughts and actions are automated. It's where your habits live. It's also the part of your brain that's hyper focused in on survival. And this is also the part of your brain that turns on as soon as you feel fear. And when you feel fear, the first thing that turns off is your upper brain, the part where willpower and motivation function. So as soon as you get stressed, guess what? Your higher functioning brain turns off. So there's different things that I teach to combat this, that we want to introduce calm throughout our day, that we want to manage our stress in ways that actually sink in on a systemic level within our bodies. Things like journaling, meditation, deep breathing, and we want to make these practices involved throughout our day. However, I want to introduce to you a concept that I've taught for as long as I've done what I'm doing. And it's also a concept that someone by the name of Dr. Judson Brewer studied. So I invite you to Google him, Dr. Judson Brewer. He's got a few TEDx talks. You can go listen to him. But he talks about something that's far superior to willpower. I want you to think of willpower and motivation as like some friends that you really enjoy being with. And every time you get together with them, you have a great time, you make great memories, but they're also kind of flaky. You can make plans and they don't show up, or they come late, or they don't come at all, or they don't stay as long as they said they would stay. They're awesome friends when they're there, but they're not the kind of friends you can count on. They're a little flaky. Again, we don't want to reject these friends because they're great friends when they're there. But these aren't the kind of friends that you're like, going to count on in a pinch, okay? These are the type of friends that you're grateful for when they are there. What do you want to count on? And this has been supported by research done by Dr. Judson Brewer, is something called curiosity. Curiosity is an emotion, but it feels good, and it unlocks something called mindfulness. When we're curious, it turns off that fear and it calms that stress response. And now when we're curious, it feels a little bit adventuresome. Curiosity feels good, and it invites us into a place of mindfulness. There are so many studies out there that talk about how mindfulness is so powerful, more powerful than even pharmaceuticals, our well-being, more powerful than lots of techniques out there. Mindfulness is powerful. Why? Because our mind is powerful. Dr. Brewer went on to give an example of people who were trying to quit smoking. And he talked about how when we're curious about the actual sensation of smoking, that we want to get mindful in that moment with curiosity of what is it about smoking. And I'm going to give other examples here in a minute that have to do with food and body, though smoking does affect our body. I want you to think in terms of when you get present with that moment. And these smokers paid attention to how it felt, how it smelt, how it tasted when they smoked. They started to pay attention to how it felt when they had the urge or the craving to smoke. He said that one particular person said, smoking smells terrible and it leaves a terrible taste in my mouth. It's actually not enjoyable, even though there's a part of your brain, that addictive pathway, that's getting its need met by getting the nicotine. The actual sensation in your body feels bad. Now, it requires curiosity to do that, to pay attention, to notice. And the people who noticed, it's not that they just stopped smoking immediately, but it was imprinted in their system that this is not a pleasant experience. And how was it imprinted? Because they were present in the moment. So often people would go to smoke and they're just thinking about satisfying the urge. They don't even think about in terms of how does this actually feel? The same goes for food. When you get present with food, and I'm not saying that all food's going to be terrible. That's not the case. But more often than not, and I've worked with thousands of women who say, I'm a food addict, I'm addicted to food, or I'm a sugaraholic, or whatever it is, even maybe even been in Overeaters Anonymous. Is there such a thing as food addiction? In my belief, I think that there is. However, the amount of people that think they're addicted and the amount of people who actually do have food addiction is much smaller. The rest of the people, usually they've dieted a lot, and that has triggered an over desire for food because it's tripped survival responses in their brain that's caused biology to take over, that's created this over desire, because your brain, the lower survival obsessed parts of your brain that don't have the ability to reason, have turned on and now are trying to make food seem extra important to you because you've gone through periods where your brain has got the message that food is scarce. Now, in terms of the food, when you get mindful and present out of your head, when you're up in your head, it can become disorienting. You're focused in on the craving. You're focused in on satisfying the craving. You're focused in on all of your emotions around that particular action. The amount of people that are actually food addicted and the other people, it's either a diet response, right? A survival response, or it's that they associate pleasant emotions and memories around that food. And they're seeking to recreate those experiences in the present moment, especially when something feels uncomfortable in their life. So when you get curious, it allows you to get present in your body and get clear on what reality actually is, as opposed to the story that your brain is telling you that it is. Let me give you an example. There was one woman that I worked with that she said, oh, I did Weight Watchers for years and years and years and years and years. And I used to save up a chunk of points at the end of the day to be able to have peanut butter. And peanut butter was like this amazing thing. I just love peanut butter, she said. And she would save it up and it was like, oh, this scarce, lovely thing at the end of the day. I took her through some exercises, actually one exercise, where she practiced being curious and staying present with the peanut butter. And she came back and she said, honestly, I thought the peanut butter had turned. I thought that it had gone bad. I had a couple of my family members try it and they said, no, it tastes totally normal. She says, I had built peanut butter up on a pedestal to be so amazing that I didn't realize I don't even really like it when I'm present with it. I don't even really enjoy it. This happens more often than not. Another example is popcorn. Popcorn that doesn't have salt or butter or something on it is not that enjoyable. It's actually kind of foamy and it's got these little holes that get stuck in your teeth and then you're spitting them out and they're getting stuck and all the things. It isn't until you put a fat and a salt on it or a sweet on it that it actually starts to create a larger dopamine response in your brain. And not only that, but when we have popcorn, we associate it with the movies, or we associate it with people coming together to eat the popcorn. It feels like something special. So it's not the actual popcorn that's as enjoyable, it's the memories and the emotions that you have associated around that popcorn, or whatever food that you may think of. Okay? So again, it's not that by becoming mindful that all foods we no longer like anymore, but that we become mindful of which foods do we like and to what extent do we actually enjoy them. At what point do we get diminishing pleasure returns back? Usually around bite 5 or 6, we start to not enjoy it as much and it begins to not taste as good. I did this exercise with hot tamales once upon a time. I thought I liked hot tamales. You know what I noticed? About 1 out of every 6 to 10 tasted good, and the rest were actually kind of painful to eat, and I would hurry and eat through them to try to find one that actually was more enjoyable. Some were hotter than others, and the ones that were too hot didn't feel good in my mouth, and they would get stuck in my teeth. And about every 6th to 10th one, it was like, oh, that was more enjoyable. But even then, that wasn't even as good as I thought that it was. It was that I was getting a dopamine response from the sugar in the hot tamales. And around hot tamales, I had all this association with friends of eating hot tamales growing up. We used to eat them and it was like, I don't know, there was just a lot of fun and excitement around it. And I associated that. But once I went through a mindfulness exercise where I was actually curious about the experience, I was then able to just be like, I don't actually really like hot tamales. When you're mindful, it creates really powerful evidence for your brain to realize something different than what it previously believed. Your brain used to believe, for example, my brain used to believe that hot tamales were amazing. And now that I was mindful in the moment as I experienced it, I realized they're not near as enjoyable as I actually thought. And so my drive or my desire for those hot tamales went down significantly. Now, you could go through mindfulness exercise and discover there are some foods you actually do enjoy, but you don't enjoy them to the extent that you thought that you did. This is really common. What I would call normal eaters are much better at being mindful and present in the moment with food than people who have dieted and have overridden those cues and that awareness with dieting or with lots of emotional eating. Okay, so how do we get curious? I also want to talk about in terms of curiosity allows us to stay present in our body. Our brain can be a place where there's lots of rumination. And the more ruminating that our brain does, the more brain drama dust it kicks up and we become confused or disoriented or overwhelmed. But when we ground ourselves in our body, what is our body experiencing? What do we feel in our body? It helps us get out of the tumult of our brain, of all the thoughts swirling, and get grounded in what is actually real and true, which is what is my body experiencing? So I want to offer up to you to take a tip from Dr. Brewer, and instead of always trying to have willpower and motivation in regards to your health goals and as it relates to food, I want you to get curious and mindful. What foods do I actually enjoy when I'm present? What foods do I actually aren't as great as I thought they were? When I'm mindful in experiencing it bite by bit, let me take you through what this can look like with food. You can smell it, feel it, taste it. How does it feel in your mouth? How does it taste at the beginning of the bite as opposed to as you chew it? How does it feel in your mouth, on your teeth, on your tongue, on the sides of your cheeks, on the roof of your mouth? How does it feel as it goes down your throat? How does it feel in your stomach? And noticing it bite by bite, staying curious and staying present in the moment, not getting sucked back up into ruminating thoughts. Stay present in the moment, and what you discover might surprise you. And what you'll discover is things that tended to be a habit that gave you negative returns, like the smoking or the overeating. As you stay present and mindful, your desire or your over desire for those things begins to decline, because now you have experienced powerful evidence for your brain to believe that something that it thought was amazing is maybe not as amazing as it originally perceived it to be. Just by being curious, just by being present and mindful in the present moment. All right, thank you so much, ladies. Check the show notes down below for links to my website or other content that I offer. And please, please, please share this episode with other women. Leave a review. When you leave reviews, if you scroll to the bottom, if say you're on the iPodcast app, if you scroll to the bottom, click leave a review. When you leave reviews, when you rate this, when you share it with others, then this message of the Body Ally movement can spread among all women so that we can learn how to be an ally with our bodies, no longer battling with them, but to accept them as the gift that God intended. And remember, you were not sent here to constantly be focused in on what did I eat? Am I losing fat? But instead to thrive and create and to live out God's plan for you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.